Before you listen to another word, I want you to think about one person, the person you keep trying to forget, the person whose name still appears in your mind when everything becomes quiet, the person you secretly hoped Allah would bring closer to you. Do you have that person in your mind right now? Then listen carefully, because what I am about to say may completely change the way you see your pain. What if the reason you cannot have them has nothing to do with your worth? What if Allah is not rejecting you? What if Allah is protecting you? Tonight, thousands of people will go to sleep thinking about someone who was never written for them. They will replay old conversations. They will imagine different endings. They will wonder why Allah didn't answer their prayers the way they wanted. And many of them will never realize something dangerous. Sometimes the greatest heartbreak is not losing someone. Sometimes the greatest heartbreak is refusing to accept what Allah has been trying to show you all along. Because before Allah removes someone, He often sends signs. Before Allah closes a door, He often sends warnings. Before Allah heals your heart, He often reveals the truth your heart has been avoiding. And if you are in one-sided love right now, if you keep thinking about someone who does not seem to choose you, if you keep praying for someone who keeps moving further away, then stay with me until the end. Because by the time this message is over, you may discover that the thing you have been calling a loss was actually one of the greatest acts of mercy Allah ever placed in your life. Lesson 1. Before Allah removes someone, He usually sends this sign first. Most people think heartbreak begins the day someone leaves. Most people think the pain starts when they stop receiving messages, when the calls stop, when the relationship ends, when the person finally walks away. But often the real story begins much earlier, long before the heartbreak, long before the tears, long before the goodbye. Before Allah removes someone from your life, He often sends signs. Small signs, quiet signs, signs that many people notice but choose to ignore, because the heart sees what it wants to see. And when we love someone, we sometimes become blind to what Allah is trying to show us. Maybe you noticed that something felt different. Maybe you noticed that the connection was no longer the same. Maybe the conversation started feeling forced. Maybe you were always the one starting the conversation, always the one checking in, always the one making the effort, always the one waiting. And deep inside, you knew something wasn't right. But you kept telling yourself, maybe they're just busy. Maybe things will get better. Maybe I just need to be patient. So you ignored the feeling. You ignored the signs. You ignored the discomfort in your heart, because accepting the truth felt more painful than holding on to hope. Have you ever noticed how Allah sometimes makes something difficult when it is not meant for you? No matter how hard you try, no matter how much effort you make, no matter how much you think about it, things keep falling apart, doors keep closing, plans keep failing. The connection never grows the way you hoped it would. And yet you keep pushing, you keep chasing, you keep trying to force what Allah may already be telling you to release. Sometimes the sign is not that Allah is bringing someone closer. Sometimes the sign is that Allah keeps creating distance. And that distance is not always punishment. Sometimes it is protection. Think about that. What if the thing that is breaking your heart today is actually saving your heart tomorrow? What if Allah can see pain coming that you cannot see? What if Allah knows that this person is not good for your future? What if Allah knows that this attachment will eventually take away your peace? You only see today. Allah sees the entire story. You only see your feelings. Allah sees the reality. You only see what you want. Allah sees what you need. And because Allah loves you more than anyone else ever could, He sometimes stops things before they destroy you. But the problem is that we often fight against Allah's warning signs. We pray for what we want. While Allah is trying to guide us toward what is better, we keep asking for the same person. While Allah keeps showing us the signs, the unanswered messages, the lack of effort, the constant confusion, the endless waiting, the feeling that something is wrong, these signs are not always there to hurt you. Sometimes they are there to wake you up. Because Allah does not always remove something suddenly. Many times He warns us first. He gives us chances to notice. He gives us opportunities to understand. He gives us signs again and again. But when the heart becomes attached, it often refuses to listen. If you are feeling this pain right now, ask yourself honestly, have there been signs that you have been ignoring? Have there been warnings that you did not want to accept? Has Allah been showing you something that your heart keeps refusing to see? Because one of the hardest truths in life is this: sometimes the pain is not coming from losing the person. Sometimes the pain is coming from refusing to accept what Allah has been showing you all along. And many people only understand those signs after the heartbreak finally arrives. They look back and say, "The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them." And perhaps tonight, before the heartbreak becomes deeper, Allah is giving you another chance to notice what He has already been trying to tell your heart. Lesson 2. Why Allah sometimes lets your heart attach to the wrong person. There is a question that has kept many people awake at night, a question that comes after the tears, a question that comes after the disappointment, a question that comes when the heart feels confused. The question is this: if this person was never meant for me, then why did Allah allow me to love them in the first place? Maybe you have asked this question. Maybe you have sat alone in your room, wondering why your heart became attached, why you cared so much, why you thought about them so often, why their presence affected you so deeply, and why letting go feels so difficult. You thought this person would become part of your future. You imagined moments that never happened. You imagined conversations that never took place. You imagined a life that never became reality. And now you are left wondering why Allah allowed your heart to go through all of this. The answer begins with understanding something very important. Not every person who enters your life is meant to stay. Some people enter your life for a season. Some people enter your life for a lesson. Some people enter your life to reveal something about yourself that you never noticed before. And some people enter your life so Allah can guide you toward a deeper relationship with Him. We often believe that every strong feeling must lead somewhere. We believe that every attachment must have a happy ending, but life does not always work that way. Sometimes the purpose of a person is not to become your spouse. Sometimes the purpose of a person is to become your lesson, and lessons are not always comfortable. In fact, some of the most important lessons come wrapped in pain. Think about your own life. Have you ever learned patience when everything was easy? Have you ever learned trust when everything went exactly as planned? Have you ever learned how much you need Allah when life gave you everything you wanted? Usually not. Most of the deepest lessons come during the moments that hurt. And sometimes Allah allows a difficult attachment because there is something greater He wants to teach you. Perhaps Allah wanted to show you how easily the heart can become attached to people. Perhaps Allah wanted to show you how much of your happiness had become dependent on another human being. Perhaps Allah wanted to teach you that no person can carry the weight that only Allah was meant to carry. Because many people unknowingly make someone the center of their world. Their mood depends on that person. Their peace depends on that person. Their happiness depends on that person. Their future depends on that person. Without realizing it, they begin expecting from the creation what should only be expected from the Creator. And then Allah allows disappointment to happen, not because He hates them, not because He wants to punish them, but because He wants to bring their heart back to Him. Sometimes Allah removes what you are leaning on so that you learn to lean on Him. And that lesson can change your entire life. Maybe before this attachment, your prayers were rushed. Maybe before this attachment, your connection with Allah was weak. Maybe before this attachment, you only remembered Allah when it was convenient. But then the heartbreak came, and suddenly you found yourself making dua with tears in your eyes. Suddenly you found yourself praying longer. Suddenly you found yourself talking to Allah in the middle of the night. Suddenly you found yourself needing Him more than ever before. And while you were focused on the person, Allah was focused on your heart. You thought the story was about them, but Allah was working on you. Allah was teaching you. Allah was shaping you. Allah was preparing you. Because sometimes we become the people we are meant to be through the very pain we wish had never happened. There is another reason Allah may allow your heart to become attached to the wrong person. Sometimes Allah wants to expose what is hidden inside you. Pain has a way of revealing things. When the attachment becomes difficult, you begin to see your fears. You begin to see your weaknesses. You begin to see your insecurities. You begin to see how much validation you were seeking from another person. You begin to see how much of your identity was connected to being chosen by someone. And these discoveries are important because Allah cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Sometimes a difficult attachment exposes wounds that have been hidden for years. And once those wounds are exposed, healing can finally begin. But healing begins with honesty. Honesty about what is really happening inside your heart. Perhaps the hardest part is that you still see good qualities in this person. You still remember the moments that made you smile. You still remember the hope you once carried. And because of that, part of you keeps asking, what if I just wait a little longer? What if things change? What if this is still meant to happen? But there comes a point where a believer must stop asking what they want and start asking what Allah is showing them. Because your feelings are not always guidance. Your emotions are not always truth. Your attachment is not always a sign that someone belongs in your future. Sometimes your attachment is simply part of the test. And not every test is meant to be kept. Some tests are meant to be passed. And passing the test sometimes means letting go. It means trusting Allah even when your heart does not understand. It means believing that Allah's wisdom is greater than your emotions. It means accepting that the one who created your heart knows what is best for it. One day, you may look back on this chapter of your life. You may remember the nights you cried. You may remember the prayers you made. You may remember the confusion you felt. And you may finally understand something that is difficult to see right now. The greatest gift was never the person. The greatest gift was the lesson. The greatest gift was the growth. The greatest gift was how much closer you became to Allah. Because sometimes Allah does not give you the person you wanted. Instead, He gives you the wisdom you needed. He gives you the strength you lacked. He gives you the faith you were missing. He gives you a stronger heart. And years later, when you see the full picture, you may realize that what felt like a painful loss was actually one of the greatest acts of mercy Allah ever placed in your life. And that is why Allah sometimes allows your heart to attach to the wrong person, not because He wants to break you, but because He wants to build you into someone stronger, wiser, and closer to Him than you were before. Lesson 3. The person you're praying for may be the person Allah is protecting you from. This may be the hardest lesson to accept, because it goes against what your heart wants to believe. You pray for them. You think about them. You imagine a future with them. You ask Allah to bring them closer to you. You ask Allah to make things work. You ask Allah to open the door. And because your feelings are so strong, you begin to believe that this must be right. After all, if your heart wants them this much, surely there must be a reason. But my dear brother and sister, strong feelings are not always a sign. Strong feelings are not always guidance. And strong feelings are not always proof that someone belongs in your future. Sometimes feelings can make us see what we want to see. Sometimes feelings can make us ignore what is right in front of us. Sometimes feelings can make us hold on to something that Allah is trying to remove. And that is why this lesson is so important. Because sometimes the person you keep asking Allah for is the very person Allah is protecting you from. Think about that for a moment. The person you cry over, the person you wait for, the person you keep praying for, the person you cannot stop thinking about. What if Allah sees something you cannot see? What if Allah knows something you do not know? What if Allah is protecting you from a future that would have broken your heart in ways you cannot even imagine? You only know the part of the story that is visible. Allah knows the entire story. You know what they say. Allah knows what they hide. You know who they are today. Allah knows who they will become tomorrow. You know how they make you feel. Allah knows how they would affect your future. This is why Allah's knowledge is perfect and our knowledge is limited. There are people who looked perfect from the outside, but years later, their true character appeared. There are people who seemed like a dream, but eventually became a source of pain. There are relationships that looked beautiful in the beginning, but ended in regret, sadness, and destruction. And there are people who spent years asking Allah for something, only to later thank Allah for not giving it to them. Because once the full picture became clear, they finally understood what Allah had been protecting them from. Imagine a child asking for something harmful. The child wants it badly. The child cries for it. The child becomes upset when they cannot have it. But the parent refuses, not because they enjoy seeing the child disappointed, but because they can see danger that the child cannot see. The child only sees what they want. The parent sees what could happen. And in a much greater way, Allah sees what we cannot see. You may be looking at this person through the eyes of emotion. Allah is looking at them through the eyes of complete knowledge. You may see attraction. Allah sees reality. You may see potential. Allah sees the outcome. You may see the dream. Allah sees the destination. And because Allah loves His servants, He sometimes closes a door they desperately want opened, not because He is being cruel, but because He is being merciful. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that every unanswered prayer is a rejection. It is not. Sometimes an unanswered prayer is protection. Sometimes Allah says no because He sees a danger you do not see. Sometimes Allah delays something because He knows the timing is wrong. Sometimes Allah removes someone because He knows they would remove your peace. And sometimes Allah breaks your attachment because He wants to save your future. But when we are emotional, we rarely think this way. We think, if only Allah would give me this person, I would finally be happy. If only this relationship worked out, everything would be okay. If only they loved me back, my life would be complete. Yet how many times have people thought that way, only to discover later that they were completely wrong? Because true happiness does not come from getting everything you want. True happiness comes from trusting the one who knows what is best for you. There is something else you need to understand. Sometimes Allah protects you from people who are not ready for you. And sometimes Allah protects you because you are not ready for them. Not every closed door means someone is bad. Not every ending means someone is evil. Sometimes Allah simply knows that the path is not right. The timing is not right. The future is not right. And because Allah knows the unseen, He guides things in a direction that your heart may not understand yet. This is why trust is so important. Trust means believing in Allah's wisdom even when you cannot see it. Trust means believing that Allah knows what He is doing. Trust means believing that the one who created your heart knows exactly what will heal it. Think about your life. How many things have happened that you did not understand at first? How many disappointments later turned into blessings? How many closed doors later saved you from regret? How many delays later made perfect sense? At the time you were confused. At the time you felt hurt. At the time you thought something good was being taken away from you. But later, Allah showed you the wisdom, and suddenly everything became clear. This situation may be exactly the same. The only difference is that you are still in the middle of the story. You have not reached the chapter where everything makes sense yet. You are still living through the confusion. You are still living through the questions. You are still living through the pain. But Allah already sees the ending. And because He sees the ending, He is guiding your life in a way that protects you. Even if you do not understand it right now, one day there is a strong chance that you will look back on this person differently. One day you may see things you cannot see today. One day you may notice the signs you ignored. One day you may recognize the red flags you overlooked. One day you may understand why things never worked no matter how hard you tried. And on that day you may raise your hands and say, "Ya Allah, thank you. Thank you for not giving me what I kept asking for. Thank you for protecting me from what I thought I needed. Thank you for loving me enough to say no." Because sometimes Allah's greatest mercy comes in the form of a closed door. Sometimes His greatest protection comes in the form of disappointment. Sometimes His greatest gift comes wrapped inside heartbreak. And sometimes the person you are desperately praying for today is the very person Allah, in His perfect wisdom and mercy, is protecting you from. So if the door remains closed, if the distance continues to grow, if every attempt keeps failing, do not only ask yourself, "Why isn't Allah giving me this person?" Also ask, "What if Allah is saving me from something I cannot yet see?" Because that question may completely change the way you look at your pain, and it may be the beginning of your healing. Lesson 4. The real reason you keep thinking about them. Every night, there is a reason this person keeps appearing in your mind. There is a reason you think about them when the room becomes quiet. There is a reason their name enters your thoughts when everyone else is asleep. There is a reason your heart feels heavy at night. Because nighttime has a strange way of revealing what we hide during the day. During the day, life keeps us busy. There is work, there are responsibilities, there are people around us, there are distractions everywhere. But then the night comes, the noise disappears, the world becomes quiet, and suddenly the thoughts you were avoiding begin to return. You remember their words, you remember their smile, you remember the conversations, you remember the hopes you once carried, and before you know it, you are thinking about them again. Maybe you tell yourself, "Why can't I stop? Why do they keep coming back into my mind? Why am I still thinking about them after all this time?" And perhaps you have convinced yourself that the answer is simple. You tell yourself, "It's because I love them." But sometimes the answer goes much deeper than that. Sometimes you are not struggling to let go of the person. Sometimes you are struggling to let go of the future you imagined with them. And there is a huge difference. Many people believe they miss the person, but often what they truly miss is the dream of what could have been, the dream of being together, the dream of building a life together, the dream of finally feeling chosen, the dream of finally feeling loved, the dream of having someone who understands them. And when that dream begins to disappear, the heart struggles, not because it is losing reality, but because it is losing imagination. Think carefully. How much of your attachment is connected to who this person actually is? And how much of it is connected to who you hoped they would become? This is a question many people never ask themselves, because sometimes we fall in love with possibilities. We fall in love with potential. We fall in love with a future that exists only in our minds. We create beautiful stories inside our hearts. We imagine happy endings. We imagine years together. We imagine moments that never happened. And slowly, those imagined futures begin to feel real. Then when things do not work out, it feels like our entire future has been stolen. But the truth is that the future never existed. It was only a picture inside our minds. And now the heart is grieving something it never actually had. That is why the pain feels so confusing. You are not only grieving a person, you are grieving a dream. You are grieving expectations. You are grieving hopes. You are grieving the life you thought was waiting for you. And that kind of pain can be very difficult to let go of. There is another reason you may still be thinking about them every night. Sometimes the heart becomes attached because it is searching for something deeper. Maybe you are not really searching for them. Maybe you are searching for comfort. Maybe you are searching for acceptance. Maybe you are searching for security. Maybe you are searching for someone who makes you feel valued. And because this person became connected to those feelings, your mind keeps returning to them. You think they are the answer. You think they are the missing piece. You think they are the source of the happiness you are looking for. But what if they are not? What if the thing you are truly searching for cannot be found in another human being? What if the peace your heart wants is actually found in Allah? Because no human being can fully complete you. No human being can remove every fear. No human being can heal every wound. No human being can carry the expectations that belong to Allah. And when we expect someone to do what only Allah can do, disappointment becomes almost inevitable. There is something else that keeps people trapped. They keep replaying the good moments. They remember the kind words. They remember the beautiful conversations. They remember the moments that made them smile. But they forget everything else. They forget the confusion. They forget the uncertainty. They forget the waiting. They forget the sleepless nights. They forget how often they felt ignored. They forget how much they cried. The mind has a habit of turning painful memories into beautiful ones. Especially when we feel lonely. Especially when we miss someone. Especially when we want the past to return. And because of this, people sometimes become attached to a version of the story that is not completely real. They remember the highlights, but they forget the hurt. They remember the dream, but they forget the struggle. And this makes letting go even harder. Can I tell you something that may change the way you see your situation? The fact that you think about someone often does not automatically mean they belong in your future. Many people make this mistake. They believe, if I can't stop thinking about them, it must be a sign. If I miss them this much, it must mean they are meant for me. But thoughts are not always signs. Sometimes thoughts are simply evidence of attachment. Sometimes thoughts are evidence of emotional wounds that still need healing. Sometimes thoughts are evidence that your heart is struggling to accept reality. And healing begins when you stop treating every thought as a message. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every memory deserves your energy. Not every feeling deserves your trust. The real reason you keep thinking about them every night may have very little to do with them. It may have more to do with what is happening inside your own heart. The fear of being alone, the fear of starting over, the fear of letting go, the fear of accepting that the story is over. These fears can keep a person emotionally attached long after the relationship itself has ended. But there is good news. Healing does not begin when you stop thinking about them. Healing begins when you stop believing that you need them in order to be okay. Read that again. Healing does not begin when the thoughts disappear. Healing begins when the thoughts no longer control you. Healing begins when you understand that your future is not dependent on one person. Healing begins when you trust Allah more than your emotions. Healing begins when you accept that if Allah removed something, He did so with wisdom. And healing grows every time you choose trust over obsession. Every time you choose dua over overthinking. Every time you choose Allah over attachment. Perhaps tonight, as you listen to these words, that person is still on your mind. Perhaps their memory still hurts. Perhaps your heart still wishes things had turned out differently. That is okay. Healing takes time, but do not mistake the presence of thoughts for the presence of destiny. Just because someone remains in your mind does not mean they belong in your future. Sometimes they remain in your mind because Allah is teaching you a lesson through them. A lesson about attachment, a lesson about trust, a lesson about patience, a lesson about relying on Him. And one day, by the permission of Allah, you will reach a moment where you think about them and no longer feel broken. You will remember them and no longer feel trapped. You will look back and realize that the thing you once thought you could never survive was actually the thing that brought you closer to Allah. And on that day, you will understand that the real story was never about them. It was always about what Allah was teaching your heart through them. Lesson 5. The day you finally understand why Allah didn't let it happen. There will come a day when this pain will no longer feel the way it feels today. I know that may be difficult to believe right now, because at this moment your heart may still be holding on. Your mind may still be replaying memories. Your eyes may still become emotional when you think about them. And a part of you may still be asking the same question you have asked 100 times before. Why didn't Allah let it happen? Why didn't Allah answer my prayer the way I wanted? Why didn't things work out? Why did Allah allow me to care so much if it was never meant to be? These questions are natural. Almost everyone who has experienced heartbreak has asked them. But there is something important you must remember. Just because you do not understand Allah's wisdom today does not mean there is no wisdom. Just because the answer is hidden does not mean the answer does not exist. Sometimes Allah explains things immediately, and sometimes He lets understanding arrive years later, because some lessons can only be understood with time. Some truths can only be seen from a distance, and some blessings only become visible after the pain has passed. Right now, you are standing too close to the situation. You are inside the storm, and when you are inside the storm, it is difficult to see clearly. All you can see is the rain. All you can feel is the wind. All you can hear is the noise. But one day, the storm will pass, and when it does, your perspective will change. You will begin noticing things you cannot see today. You will begin understanding things you cannot understand today. You will begin connecting pieces that currently make no sense, and that is often when the healing truly begins. Think about your past for a moment. Has there ever been something you desperately wanted? Something you prayed for? Something you believed would make you happy? Something you thought you absolutely needed? Yet later, when Allah did not give it to you, you eventually realized that it was not good for you. At the time you felt disappointed. At the time you felt confused. At the time you felt hurt. But later you thanked Allah, because later you saw what Allah was protecting you from. The same thing happens in matters of the heart. The only difference is that emotional pain often takes longer to understand. Because when feelings are involved, objectivity disappears. The heart sees what it wants to see. The heart focuses on what it hopes for. The heart imagines beautiful possibilities. And because of this, we sometimes become attached to an idea that was never meant to become reality. One day, you may discover things about this person that you do not know right now. You may discover character traits that were hidden. You may discover habits that would have brought pain into your life. You may discover that the person you imagined and the person they truly were not exactly the same. And suddenly, things that once felt confusing begin to make sense. You may realize that Allah was protecting your peace. You may realize that Allah was protecting your faith. You may realize that Allah was protecting your future. And when that realization comes, your heart will begin to see Allah's mercy in a completely different way. But even if that never happens, even if you never learn every detail, even if you never receive complete answers, you can still trust that Allah's decision was made with perfect knowledge. Because Allah does not need to explain himself in order to be right. Allah sees everything. Allah knows everything. Allah understands every consequence. Allah knows every future conversation, every future argument, every future disappointment, every future regret, every future outcome. And because his knowledge is perfect, his decisions are perfect. Even when they hurt, even when they confuse us, even when we cry because of them. There is another truth that many people discover years later. Sometimes they do not merely understand why Allah closed one door, they understand why he needed that door to close. Because had that door remained open, they would never have reached the blessings waiting ahead. Think about that. Had you gotten everything you wanted immediately, perhaps you would never have grown. Perhaps you would never have become stronger. Perhaps you would never have turned back to Allah the way you did. Perhaps you would never have learned patience. Perhaps you would never have learned trust. Perhaps you would never have become the person you are becoming today. Sometimes Allah removes one path because another path is waiting. A path you cannot see, a path you cannot imagine, a path that eventually leads to something far better. But first your hands must become empty, because Allah cannot place something new in your hands if you refuse to let go of what he has already taken away. Many people spend years mourning a closed door. Then one day Allah opens a door they never expected, a blessing they never imagined, a person they never saw coming, a peace they never thought was possible. And suddenly they look back at the thing that once broke them, and they smile. Not because the pain was enjoyable, not because the tears were easy, but because they finally understand. They finally see what Allah saw all along, and they realize something beautiful. If Allah had given them what they wanted, they would have missed what they needed. Read that again. If Allah had given them what they wanted, they would have missed what they needed. And that realization changes everything. Right now, you may still be focusing on the person Allah did not give you. But what if your future contains something your current heart cannot even imagine? What if Allah is preparing a blessing that makes today's disappointment look small? What if Allah is protecting a future happiness that requires this chapter to end first? What if the story is not ending? What if it is only changing direction? Because sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a redirection. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually protection. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually preparation. And sometimes what feels like Allah taking something away is actually Allah making room for something better. The day will come, maybe sooner than you think, maybe years from now, only Allah knows. But the day will come when the pain loses its power. The memories become lighter, the questions become quieter, the confusion begins to fade, and your heart finally sees what it could not see before. You will look back at the nights you cried, the prayers you made, the hopes you carried, the disappointments you endured. And instead of asking, "Why didn't Allah let it happen?" you may find yourself asking a completely different question. You may ask, "How did I ever doubt Allah's plan?" Because by then you will see the wisdom, you will see the mercy, you will see the protection, you will see the love of Allah hidden inside the pain. And with tears in your eyes, but this time tears of gratitude, you may whisper, "Ya Allah, thank you for not giving me what I was begging for. Thank you for protecting me when I could not protect myself. Thank you for seeing what I could not see. Thank you for knowing what I did not know. Thank you for closing the door that I kept trying to force open, because now I understand. Now I finally understand why you didn't let it happen." And that, my dear brother and my dear sister, may become one of the most beautiful moments of your entire journey back to Allah. If you remember nothing else from this message, remember this: Allah does not take something away without wisdom. Allah does not close a door without a reason. And Allah does not allow pain into your life without a purpose. Right now, you may still be hurting. You may still be thinking about them. You may still be wondering what could have been. And perhaps a part of your heart is still waiting for things to change. But tonight, I want you to leave with a different question. Instead of asking, "Why didn't Allah give me this person?" ask yourself, "What is Allah trying to teach me through this experience?" Because sometimes the lesson is more valuable than the thing we lost. Sometimes the growth is more valuable than the relationship we wanted. And sometimes the journey back to Allah is worth more than everything our heart was chasing. My dear brother and sister, the person you wanted may not be written for you, but Allah's mercy is written for you. Allah's guidance is written for you. Allah's love is written for you. And the future that Allah has prepared for you is far greater than anything you can imagine today. So stop measuring your life by the person who walked away. Stop measuring your worth by who did not choose you. Stop measuring your future by one closed door, because your story is bigger than this chapter. Your future is bigger than this disappointment, and Allah's plan is bigger than this pain. One day, by the permission of Allah, you will look back at this season of your life. You will remember the tears. You will remember the sleepless nights. You will remember the prayers. And you will realize that Allah was carrying you through every moment. Even when you could not see it, even when you did not understand it, even when your heart was breaking. So trust Him, trust His timing, trust His wisdom, trust His plan. And whenever your heart begins to miss what Allah has removed, remind yourself of this beautiful truth. If it was truly meant for you, Allah would never let it miss you. And if Allah allowed it to leave, then He already knows something better about your future than you know about your present. May Allah heal every broken heart. May Allah replace every pain with peace. May Allah remove every unhealthy attachment. May Allah fill your heart with His love, His guidance, and His light. And may Allah grant you what is best for your dunya and your akhirah, even when it is different from what you asked for. Ameen. And Allah knows best.